By my count, this is only the third time we've ever worked together.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit like, to be fair to us, De Niro and Pacino in
Hey,
Heat.
well, of course. That's exactly
No, I
what
think we talked about the Knights Templar back in 2017.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah,
and then I saw you at Runnymede, which we're going to talk about.
That was nice.
But apart from that,
yeah.
people find it hard to get their heads around that these are two
Well,
separate people.
I have taken credit for more of your books than I can relate on this podcast. I honestly, people around the world come up to me and go, "I love your books in the Middle Ages," and I go, "Thank you very much."
I play along. I take credit for history here. A lot of credit.
Never ever. Well, there's plenty of credits to go around when it comes to your books, and because also people are very earnest because people develop very great great relationships with authors. So I never want to go, "That's not me. Leave me alone." I always just go, "I'm so glad," and then I always I send you a text, don't I? I let you know. So the love ends up with you.
I think that's the right thing to do. I don't think you want to puncture people's sort of dream on the spot.
No,
let them find out for themselves afterwards, or not at all.
Hopefully they don't.
Hello, you're listening to, or indeed watching, This is History in conversation with me, Dan Jones, and my sometime alter ego, as we've just established, and fellow history nerd, Dan Snow. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk today about the greatest places that we've visited in the course of doing history, because I think one of the great privileges and pleasures of this job is it kind of takes you around the world. And I don't know, is there a continent you haven't been to?
There is not. I'm involved in
Antarctica.
I've been to Antarctica, although I've stood on the ice off Antarctica, which I think counts. I spent 3 weeks trapped in a vessel in the ice of the Weddell Sea, and some absolute knobs said to me, "You haven't been to Antarctica, have you?" But it's like if you're in Lyme Bay, if you're in the Bristol Channel for 3 weeks, I think you're allowed to say you've been to Europe, aren't you?
I think you are.
I think so.
I think you've been to Antarctica. You've certainly been closer than I have. But what I want to do is talk about some of the most memorable historical places that you've been in the past, and I'll throw in some of my own. I thought maybe we could start with the last place I think I saw you, which was in Runnymede, because we were down there. It was quite a cold day, as I recall.
Yeah.
But we had rather a nice time talking about Magna Carta there. It was 2015 was the big anniversary for Magna Carta, so that was the 800th anniversary. And I live about 3 miles away from Runnymede, so
despite all your travels, actually you came home.
Starts at home.
Yeah.
So you've been down there before.
I've been down there loads, but it was brilliant going with you, and it's a very particular. It's kind of particular. It's quite fun. Yeah. Sometimes you go to historic sites, don't you, where the geology or the farming or there's been urbanisation and there's almost no reason for being there. When you're at Runnymede, it all makes sense. It's like a water meadow. The Thames is there. You can see it, and you can imagine it burst. And you to explain to me that it was flat. But it's damp. It's a safe place for meetings. It's a place where people go to parley, and actually the geography is quite important there, isn't it?
Well, in 1215, and listeners to our regular fixture, Dynasty to Die For, will cast their minds back and remember when we were talking about King John. But in this time, there was, you had the barons very angry with John for all of his manipulations of the law and all of his oppressions and all of his tyrannies, camped in Staines. And then you had the king at Windsor, and it was this sort of meeting point in the middle where, because of the geography of the river, it was almost impossible to launch an ambush.
Yes.
Whenever we think about historical places, I think it's always worth trying to go. Do you agree? If you're trying to narrate a story about a place and you don't know what the physicality of that spot is like, you can often miss the most obvious things about a story.
There are two kinds of historians in the world, and there are those who go away on holiday and lie on a sun lounger and chill out, and then there are those who immediately scale the cliff behind the hotel to go and look at the castle or the gun battery.
Do I need to ask which one?
No,
you are?
Well, and what I like about you, Dan Jones, is you are absolutely in that category, because I think it does matter. And when you're writing wonderful narrative history like you do, or talking on the pod so eloquently, it's nice to be able to say, now, the problem with that slope is, the gravel's very loose. Which is true.
Right.
It is true. And it's like the First World War. You walk across the Somme after it rains, which is most days, and within 5 minutes you've got a plate of clay the size of a plate, a large plate thing, a salmon serving dish on each foot, because that is the nature of the soil. So you're like, and that is something actually you can read about it. Well, mud on feet. What are they complaining about? There's certain things that in the comfort of your own library, it's very hard to internalise. And so I have enjoyed enormously going to places and getting that sense of things. And as a view through the writing, I can tell you always try and whenever I talk to you, you're always going somewhere to do some research. And I do think if you're privileged enough to do that, it is absolutely essential. It really helps to the geography, the geology, the weather can really help to sort of just fill the picture out when you're telling the story. And I guess the interesting thing about Runnymede that I like, last thing I'd say about Runnymede just quickly, is I do think that in 2015 we marked this, and it did feel important because at the moment we are now wrestling again with this. And actually it's the oldest question in human existence, which is how do we, normal people, exert any control over those who rule over us?
Right.
And that question seems quite lively again now today, right? How do we go, hang on, mate, person who rules over us for reasons that are sometimes slightly obscure, we need you not to do certain things. We need to, and I think that feels to me when I was at school and growing up, I thought those questions were settled. Turns out that's not settled anymore. And if you're in China, if you're in Russia, if you're in other countries, those are really very live questions like that. And Magna Carta that's essentially what it's about, right?
Well, it's interesting that we're sitting here marvelling somewhat. I mean, and not just sitting here in this room at this moment, but sitting here in society, marvelling at the idea that these individual leaders can be out there making decisions and then just kind of doing stuff. Because for the way I see it, for the most part in human history, that's been normality.
That's normality.
And the questions about how do you restrain a leader who really goes a bit off grid, as it were, off the rails. But we, being of the same generation, have grown up through probably the most unusual time in human history.
Precious.
In which we probably grew up in the high point of the rule of law, of international norms, not everywhere, but by and large being like, okay, we really do have restraining mechanisms on individuated power. And all of that seems to be regressing towards the historical mean.
It seems like that a bit, yeah.
Runnymede's close to home for me.
Yeah, I grew up nearby, but I understand why you've chosen it.
But what about you?
Well, I've also chosen one's close to home. It's a bit embarrassing. We both came promising to tell stories of the far off and exotic, but I guess this is a landscape and a seascape that's very close to me. The Solent is the strip of water, for those of you who don't know, on the south coast of England, between the Isle of Wight, which is a sort of a diamond-shaped island off the south coast. You got Portsmouth and Hayling Island in the east, and it runs all the way through to sort of Hurst Spit. Amazing geology. World's oldest boat building site has been found there, a Mesolithic boat building site. It's a Stonehenge boat building site. You've got hollowed out canoe evidence, hollowed out canoes. World's oldest. You've got, and then you've just got a sort of very dynamically, lots of Romans. Vespasian, as a young legionary commander, invades, part of the Claudian invasion of the 40s AD. He invades and captures the Isle of Wight. We know that. And then you get lots of Viking, Anglo-Saxon Viking activity. You've got the big cities of Southampton, where Henry V leads to.
Where do you stand on Southampton? There's great rivalry for international viewers and listeners between Portsmouth and the nearby town of Southampton.
I live close to Southampton, so I'm afraid I'm a Southampton guy.
What's the name in Portsmouth for Southampton?
The Wonderful Saints.
I thought it was the Scum.
The Scum. Yeah.
I may have got that wrong.
It's there's antipathy between the two cities, as only neighbours can have. So Portsmouth, great naval base. Yeah. Henry VIII does a lot of work there, and then subsequently that's the site of HMS Victory now, and it's a wonderful. It's also Britain's premier naval base. And Southampton's more a commercial trading city, very interesting position on the outs of where two rivers converge, and it's got this beautiful deep water harbour. Titanic leaves from Southampton. Henry V leaves from Southampton. D-Day, roughly speaking, a huge number of the largest fleet of ships from the largest fleet ever assembled in human history in June 1944. They leave from Southampton, Portsmouth, other ports from there, and the Solent, which this stretch of water was so busy it was said you could walk from one side to the other without getting your feet wet. Yeah. So I mean, I cannot tell you.
So in a way, it's the sort of the epicenter of naval history, really. I
think so. I like to think of the epicenter of all history. No, but yes, naval history in particular, maritime history, a lot of very important maritime history,
which is kind of your like nerd specialty, right?
Nerd specialty.
You're a naval.
Yeah. Naval guy, maritime guy, yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure. Until 1830, when George Stephenson got that little old train running down between Liverpool and Manchester. If you had a heavy object and you want to take it somewhere, you did it on the water. You did it by boat, and you see this at the very dawn of our species. You see it with Stonehenge, whatever and it's so that the sea. If you looked out to the sea now, it looks empty. One enormous container ship going past carrying the entire gross national product of a small country every week. But the rest of the sea looks quite empty, and the sea would have looked busy. Until the modern world. So there would have been fishing boats, there would have been coastal traders, there would have been passenger ships, there would have been little pirates, whatever it might have been. The seas around Britain, the seas around France, the seas of the Mediterranean would have just been crowded with sails. That's where humans did their business. It's where they traded, travelled, moved. And that's something I think it is difficult for us to get our heads around now.
Well, so in a way, that sounds a bit like a kind of unseen revolution in human history. I talk a lot about the pain revolution at the beginning of the 20th century, when pain effectively became somewhat optional with the availability of anaesthetic and its introduction into everyday life as well as the medical system, as being one of these massive revolutions that we kind of forget about because we live on the other side of it. So I wonder if we've lived through a similar one in terms of transport, where it's so hard for us to imagine the world when seaborne power was and was everything.
And you've written about this so beautifully. But now, if you show someone a map, the blue bit is just C6 a barrier. And on the map, there's the highway map, the motorway map here in the UK. There's big arteries of travel. You get from London to Manchester really easily. As you well know, until very recently, the links between Brittany, Cornwall, Normandy, southern England, Norfolk, and the Low Countries. Absolutely vastly more important than the links between Norfolk and Chester.
Yes.
Right? So so you would, in terms of language, marriage, whatever, power structures, and trans-maritime empires would have been very, very common. And so that is just something that has been a revolution. We see the water as a barrier. The water traditionally was a bridge to places. And so that is a challenge of telling that story a little bit. Is that people just go, what? I mean, that's just, it's madness. It doesn't make sense. I don't want to travel across water. It's pain.
I feel ill.
Yeah, I feel ill. Dan, where's one of the best places, a little further away, where's one of the best places you've been?
Well, so one of my favourite places that I've visited is probably the Templar tunnels in Acre. This is northern Israel, just near the Lebanese border. And you can, these dates to the era of the Crusades, so sort of high Middle Ages, but they're tunnels that run under the city from what was probably the Templar base through to the port. It's somewhere that I had a really interesting time visiting, and don't think I could have really got into the history of this particular bit of history without seeing. I found that this took me into both the real history and the sort of the mythology of a subject, which in this case is the Knights Templar.
Yeah.
Nearly 10 years ago, I read a book about the Templars, and you can't really go into Templar history hoping that you won't encounter Templar mythology as well. And there's a really interesting place in the city of Acre in Israel where you sort of get a feel for both. Acre was once the capital of the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem. After the First Crusade, Jerusalem was in Christian hands, but after Saladin, Jerusalem was lost, and so Acre
becomes the toehold, doesn't it?
Acre became the capital and eventually the last city standing of the Crusader Kingdom. And the Templars set up one of their great headquarters in this town and had tunnels that seemed to have run from the Templar headquarters to the port. I mean, so they could possibly so they could evade taxes, but probably just to give ease of access. And you can still go down into these tunnels today. I think, off the top of my head, they're a couple of 100 meters long, and in themselves they aren't particularly spectacular. They're tunnels, but they take you into this world, firstly of the Templars in their real crusading historical setting, in this time when there was this coming together of religion and of military conquest and of trade and of all of these things sort of piled together in this really quite small bit of the Mediterranean, of the Eastern Mediterranean. But just by virtue of saying Templar tunnels, it implies this sort of deep mystery. What the hell were they up to?
You got me there.
And that I found so fascinating when I was doing a lot of work on the Templars, and still do now, because it's an organisation where people almost, I mean, they want the mythology to be there, and you're in this position. You're in this position as a historian when you start to say, well, I don't think the Templars necessarily did hide the secret bloodline of Christ and take a load of treasure up to Scotland and to hide Shakespeare's real writings on Oak Island, you feel you're really disappointing people by not playing along.
But you're allowed to tap into it. You have fun with it, though. I mean, that's great.
I think that's the key. If you just sort of put your foot down and say, no, absolute bollocks, don't be so stupid, you kind of drive people away.
Yes, and what we tell each other, isn't it, Dan, that we tell each other, in fact, the true stories are more exciting. So you go, come for the Templar gold, but actually leave with a much more nuanced understanding of the Templars. And that's those are the friends you make along the way.
Yes, it's about having this attitude of welcome in. There's a reason why people are interested in the Templars. And if one approaches the subject by saying, well, there's a perfectly good hospitaller fortress in Acre, I don't see why you're not as interested in that as the Templar tunnels. In fact, well, that happens to be true, but it's...
Also, people are allowed to be interested in what they're interested in. I mean, I think it's you have to meet people where they are. You can't get... I've always found you can't get angry at people being interested in things. And it's just wonderful. It's a great springboarding. You wrote a great book on Templars. Wonderful. Loads of people bought it. It's fantastic. Everyone's happy.
You got a lot of credit for it.
I go around the world getting thanked for it. I take that credit. Everyone's a winner. But when Acre falls, unbelievable siege. Go and check it out. It's one of the great medieval sieges. They kill. Is it the Hospitallers that they slaughter, or is it the Templar? I think it's.
Well, at various times in crusading history, they both get it quite literally in the neck. So it's after the Battle of Hattin in 1187.
Yeah, the Templars get lined up.
The Templars and the Hospitallers, because they're kind of the crack troops in the crusading army. Saladin he's willing to ransom everybody of any value except for the Templars and Hospitallers. So even King Guy of Jerusalem, off you go. But the Templars and Hospitallers, I mean, it's like having all the Navy SEALs and the SAS.
Yeah,
you really going to let them go? I think it might be better to just chop all their heads off. And so chop all the heads off is what he does. But it's I suppose it's the ultimate backhanded compliment.
I suppose so. That's true. Tough for them. So my equivalent of those tunnels, which I would love to see, I would put on my list, is HMS Victory, which I think is a massive 18th century battleship that you can still go and see today. It's the ship that was Nelson's flagship Battle of Trafalgar.
Yeah. Where is it?
It's in Portsmouth, obviously. It's one of the best things in the world to go and see. So this is, at the time, the biggest warship ever built in Europe. 1759, the keel's laid down. The year of victories, when Britain wins all these victories all over the world. So it's called HMS Victory. Awesome. And it then serves from 1759, amazing investment, all the way through to the Battle of Trafalgar 1805. It goes on serving after that as well. So they're getting their money's worth. 2,000 oak trees went into building it, something like 60 acres of trees, 27 miles of ropes and rigging. It's got just over 100 guns. Like it was the most complicated item on Earth. Like if a giant picked up something on Earth at the time, that was the most complicated single thing that existed. Because again, remember, matched with the thing that the ports are very important. And so if HMS Victory drops anchor off your port, and you're in China, you're in Peru, you're in wherever you are, it's like, okay, now we can't. This person's just got their heel on our jugular, on our windpipe. So that's why navies sort of matter so much in that period, and it's capable of obviously defeating the enemy fleet in battle. It's just this astonishing, to build it, to man it, to crew it, to ensure no one crashes it into rocks. You need an incredibly sophisticated, the beginnings of a really early, interesting modern state. You need officers who can pass exams, who are not just there because their granddad is posh. You need, army's fine. The army, you can have officers that are posh and thick, because an officer's only job in the army is to show the men how to die, to not flinch when bullets go past. Yeah. Sergeants show the men how to fight. Officers show the men how to die. But that's not good enough in the Navy. You need exams. You need a sort of objective criteria which to test people on. You can't give them that much responsibility and not have them know what they're doing. And so this is the beginning of a kind of meritocratic state. It's the beginning. The state has to find funding for this. It has to upkeep. You can't just. You can, as you know, a medieval army. You can, if you've got gold, you can sort of get an army together. You've got a problem retaining it, but you can just get it together. Armed men, you can train peasants in a year or so. To, give them a primitive firearm. Maybe a few months, you can get them going. You can't wish a navy into being. You need dry docks. You need seasoned oak. You need canvas. So you're talking about a multi-year, multi-generational project. Build HMS Victory, and B, keep it going. And so if people listening to thinking I'm just a sort of war, excited about war, yes, that's an amazing, extraordinary part of it. And its story at the Battle of Trafalgar is unbelievable. But actually, what I love about it is what it represents in terms of what it's the tip of the iceberg and what's going on underneath it, and that talks a lot about why Britain, France, and these other European countries sort of conquered the rest of the earth in this period. They put together all these kind of killer apps. Yeah.
Is there a moment from that represents the beginning of that process if HMS Victory is the kind of the high point of it? I mean, when does this all begin in terms of the?
It's so interesting because Europe is this just little promontory on the end of Asia, and most of the action in the economic and political military action throughout much of history has been in the Indian Ocean. You've got Persia, you've got empires of India, slightly an adjunct South China Sea over there, and suddenly these mad little Europeans. And it's the great expression on the peninsulas of the peninsula. So not just in Europe, but in Devon, in Brittany, in Portugal and Spain. So these are the outside bits of the outside bits. They sort of put together shipbuilding technology, navigational advances, heavy weapons cannon, and they start sailing very long distances reasonably safely. I mean, still, I wouldn't want to do it, but reasonably safely. They're highly competitive. These absolute blighters, Spanish, Bretons, Portuguese, Brits, Scots, all compete. So arms race, absolutely frantically, nicking each other's talent, nicking each other's brains. Magellan's going here, Columbus going there, Cabot's going over there. They're stealing ideas from each other. They're perfecting, they're getting a bit of kit and adding onto it. And so, from about 1500, and then it just starts to, it kind of snowballs. And initially, as you know, they turn up, the British military will turn up, English and British military will turn up in a place like India, and they'll fight a reasonably even battle for a couple hundred. And then suddenly you just see, weirdly, these Europeans just screaming ahead. And that's the other thing about navies. Very hard to catch up, like insanely difficult. If you're a very wealthy Mughal emperor, you can summon a lot of troops together, but you look at a navy ship, you're like, I don't know how to get one of those.
No,
I need factories. I need ironworks. It's a lot of tech.
I mean, it's making me think at the moment of the age that we're living in, and there are several parallel huge technological leaps forward. One of them is the sort of latest age of space exploration. And I wonder if the comparable capital spend and just vision and just like dogged determination and belief that this technological revolution and everything that will have to go into it is the Musk and to a slightly lesser extent Bezos.
Oh, these people,
encouraged and supported by the American economy, saying, you know what, we can build this new generation of ships that will take us reliably back and forth to the moon and eventually to Mars. I mean, is that too far-fetched an analogy for what happens in Britain?
Look, all analogies, as you know, in history, kind of, you have to take with a pinch of salt, but I think it's a really useful way to think about that. Yeah, and I think we need to think about the rest of us who aren't lucky enough to have our own space companies need to think about the consequences and how we kind of regulate and go, well, when we get to Mars, when we got to North America, all we did was like, right, this is work. Let's immediately export our European squabbles to North America. So do we want to get to a world where there's American flags and Chinese flags and then private company flags being planted on Mars? Or do we want to kind of head that off before we get there and really try and learn the lessons, I guess, of that period of the dash for global empire?
Well, here's a big historical question: Do people ever learn the lessons?
I don't.
Or do they just?
What do you think about? You get asked. I get asked that at every talk, don't you? You same thing. I'm sure you get the same thing. Like, do we learn the lessons?
I suppose on this subject, I'm increasingly pessimistic, but not for the old reason. I used to be pessimistic. I used to think people repeatedly make the same mistakes in different eras of history because they don't know enough about history, and then the more sort of powerful political people I kind of bump into or off as I grow up, the more I think, no, they usually know quite a lot about history, but it's usually, no, I've read a lot of history and now I'm not going to do the same thing because I'm smarter.
I'm going to invade Russia in the summer. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Or no, I'm still going to invade it in the winter, but because I know I'm not going to fuck it up this time.
Yeah, I got tech. So get some coats.
So my thinking about that is with regard to how, it would be very nice for us to go and colonize the moon and Mars and then not immediately have a massive war about who gets the best bit of it. Would be lovely.
I know. Look, I hear what you're saying, and I also though think, well, we are learning something. Otherwise, we'd all be still living in like wattle and daub houses. So it feels like in some ways we are learning. But obviously, there's eye-catching examples of areas in which there are certain human problems seem to be kind of intractable. They seem to be baked into the way that we do things.
Yes, and that's why I suppose certain like foundational religious texts just endure. I mean, in their moral dimension, because typically they're dealing with the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, yeah. We have fatal flaws.
Yeah. Talking of ancient texts,
yeah,
you're going to love this segue. I mean, I just think
that's brilliant.
I'm
here for it. This is where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in the world?
I want to go to Hisarlik, and actually, we were just talking about it before we started recording. This time, almost exactly to the day, I went down to the putative site of the Trojan War.
That's cool.
Battle of Troy. Absolutely amazing. So this is in southwest Turkey on the Gallipoli, the Dardanelles, the most famous historically for
the Gallipoli landings.
The Gallipoli landings, but there's an archaeological site that's been an archaeological site since the middle of the 19th century there, which is associated with whatever the historical event was that we now call the Trojan War. That's a hell of a mouthful because nobody knows the exact history of the Trojan War and the delineation between myth and history. But
there is an exciting destruction layer at about 1180 BC or something, yes. 1200 BC, which is about right, which is so exciting, isn't it? It's about right for possibly the events described. So that's cool.
It's an amazing place, and this was somewhere that I went because I was, I've written this book about castles, and I was trying to trace the origins of fortifications and of the human, thinking about war in the West at any rate, back to this moment, which, if it happened at all, happened in about 1180 BC. But then there's an actual place which certainly since Roman times, Caesar visited,
people
was associated with the Trojan War. Is extraordinary, and there's actually you've been there, right?
It's epic.
There's still quite a lot of it left, despite the efforts of the first guy to excavate it, Heinrich Schliemann, whose chief tool of excavation was dynamite. So just dynamited a gigantic trench through the middle.
But people should go and check out, Google the images of, he found some jewelry he found a burial which is actually before the period, but he thought it was the right period, and he called it Helen of Troy's jewelry. And he got his wife to dress up in it. So you go to see some amazing 19th century images of his wife looking at Helen of Troy, which I think then got taken back to Berlin. And I think the Russians stole it after the Second World War. So I think it's now in Moscow, weirdly, that jewelry.
Yeah, the Hermitage or somewhere like that. Are you into the classics? Is this something that gets you
going? Classics?
No, I mean, these great sort of epics. The Greek
epics, love them, mate. Love them. So I've just come back from Greece where we were sailing around the island of Ithaca. So with that,
were you indeed?
Yeah, it was great for that. We're going to make a show there. Speaking of sailing, where I've always wanted to go. So my version of Troy is Easter Island. That's for me. That's the one. I love love Polynesia.
Yep.
Not just because I watched Moana with my daughter and had a sort of epic meltdown. Basically, Moana is a movie about a dad and a daughter that love sailing, an oral historical tradition, but the dad's too scared to leave the reef, and his daughter goes off and saves the world. And that, I think, really does roughly reflect me and my daughter's relationship. So I was shaking like a leaf coming out of there. And Easter Island is the furthest of this gigantic Pacific diaspora. And there's a great argument about Easter Island is they make these huge heads. The heads now are all knocked over. There was a theory that there was a sort of environmental ecocide. They did chop down the trees, which was bad. We can all agree that there was trees, humans arrived, chop them down, bring in invasive species, destroy much of the flora and fauna. They build these amazing heads, they quarry these amazing heads. And it was thought that by the time the Europeans arrived, they'd already smashed the whole thing up with a few hundred people alive, and it was all a kind of Mad Max style kind of lesson to us all about ecocide. I think the latest, it's fun because it's nice when there's disagreement on scholarship. The latest scholarship is that actually there was a pretty thriving community when the Europeans arrived, and the Europeans.
Don't tell me the Europeans are the bad guys.
Well,
again.
you'll be amazed to find out, and partly. They did shoot a few people when they accidentally arrived. There was a misunderstanding. But most importantly, of course, disease. They were carrying disease on their ships that they had no natural ability to withstand. And so this Dutch expedition arrives about 1722. The heads upstanding. They report a community of about 3,000 people, well organised. Then it's about 80 years before another ship goes past. And at that stage, it's just chaotic. Heads falling down. A couple of hundred people scrabbling, loss of ability to make significant boats. So and it's thought probably that's because of disease. So catastrophic pandemics. and then possibly other ships visiting who haven't left a good record. So, and then because we know that after that, slavers came through, would take the people of the islands into enslavement in South America. So just a complete catastrophe on every front, really. And I love the fact that I like monumental sort of archaeology, and I find that very romantic. Go to those out of the way places, or the idea of the siege or journey there. But I also like the idea of that, really trying to get to the bottom of what actually happened, because it's quite important. It's quite important to learn what happens to societies when they chop down the trees, or when they encounter pandemic disease, or those things I still think they're very thought-provoking, aren't they? Very important. Speaking of learning lessons, so yeah.
You mentioned Stonehenge very briefly in passing earlier on. Are you up on the Stonehenge mythology? Not the mythology, the theories about how do they get it? One of those stones came from Scotland.
Also, stone came from Scotland. Isn't it exciting? Unbelievable. What does that tell you about the Isles? Fascinating to me.
More than once, I've almost crashed into the ditch going past Stonehenge, just because and there is always a traffic jam going past it. Even though, when compared to the pyramids, let's be honest, it's shit.
Oh, I could see, yes.
It's not being funny.
It's less good than the pyramids.
It's much less good than the pyramids, and evidence that, to rehearse an earlier part of this conversation, that for most of history, the very edge of Europe has been really quite primitive compared to the sort of beating heart of human civilization. But put that aside, Stonehenge is still good.
It's good.
You go past it, you go, oh my God, they did what? What? And that's like the new bit of the monument. They brought some stuff from Wales.
Yeah, amazing. And something absolutely wild was happening in the very, very, very late Stone Age in that part of Britain.
Did you read Ken Follett's latest novel?
Did not.
A lot of fucking going on Salisbury Plain.
Really?
If you believe Ken Follett's
I thought Ken Follett was more a medieval guy.
He's slipped
One
back,
of yours?
slipped back into the Stone Age,
Has
and
he?
he's sexed the Stone Age up, and that is not a criticism. Well, for anyone who wants to know just how sexy the Stone Age can be, Ken Follett's latest novel, I think, is called Circle of Days. Dan Snow, what are you up to at the moment? What should people be looking out for?
I've had lots of fun this summer. I got to make went on a great journey around the Greek islands to make a podcast series and TV show about the Odyssey, to time with the movie. So speaking of Troy, just check out Dan Snow's History wherever you get your pods.
Fantastic. Check that out. And for our royal favourites, This is History, please listen to this week's bonus episode where Dan and I will be dissecting your favourite places teeming with historical intrigue. You can listen to that at patreon.com/This is History. Could you be the King of Portsmouth? Because there was a King of Isle of Man for quite a long time.
I'm glad you've asked, because
and when I say you,
my dream.
I mean you.
Yes, I could. And plans are afoot, and there'll be no Magna Carta. There'll be no restraint. I will change my mind on restraining executive power.